Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday night chiropractic broadcasts sponsored by DE and Band of Brothers around the world. We're 2 weeks removed from an awesome DE, the 60th reunion um, anniversary, I guess. Our next DE is already coming up. It's January 9th to January 12th. It's at Clearwater Beach. If you haven't been there, my golly, it's beautiful, and everybody needs a little bit of sunshine in January. So let's plan on getting your hotel early and get ready to roll there. Um, those of you who were at DE, we want to make sure you're connecting with your teams. If you have any questions, reach out to your team leaders. We'll be reaching out to you. But yeah, make sure you stay connected between now and next DE. One of the best ways to stay connected is get on the breaths, come in and watch these Tuesday night calls. And just make sure you stay connected because we want to keep the energy high. Again, today is election day. I'm sure a lot of you probably paying attention to that, but just remember what we do is way more important than who leads our country. What we do is more important than religion, more important than race, any of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And that's why we got to kind of keep ourselves grounded because what we do is so vitally important. The next few days, next few weeks, next few months, we're in the holidays. We're in this, hopefully a wonderful, peaceful transition of power. But let's make sure that we're connected, that we stay true to our love, okay? And that love will spread throughout the world. Speaking of love, let's make sure we send some love to Katrina. Katrina had some surgery. Let's make sure that her and Lee, we see them healed and just blessed and just at peace, okay? So spending some time before you go to bed tonight, visualizing American peace, world peace, and Katrina healing and happiness. So with no further ado, I want to introduce you JJ Schmidt. JJ's been coming to DE for the past 7 years. Didn't realize that. He's been a part of my Band of Brothers when we first started it up. 20 years in practice from Kansas City. Practiced in Overland Park, which is a suburb of Kansas City. Went to Cleveland Chiropractic College. Great father, great dude, great guy. So let's hear JJ's talk. Take it over, brother.
Hey. So thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's definitely a pleasure to be able to share just what's going on in my life and just my story as far as my experience with DE. And yeah, I was looking back, I'm thinking, when was my first DE? So I started scrolling through my Google Photos and I went back to 2017 and it was November 16th, no, November 18th. And they had a DE intensive here in Kansas City, which, man, now that I've been to DE for 7 years and just see the quarterly meetings and how much it takes to get to those and like how much people put into those. Um, Man, it's humbling to think all the people that were at that DE intensive. And so what spurred me to go there was Andy was having Band of Brothers meetings at the campus there at Cleveland, and my office is a mile from Cleveland College, Cleveland University. And so, I was going probably not as consistent as I could have, but I was going, and it was nice. It was a good format because he had, 1 week we'd meet and he'd do like a round table discussion with just the local chiropractors and students. And then on the next meeting he would have like a speaker. So a lot of the old timers, just people who really, have been around for a long time in chiropractic would come on and speak to our group through Zoom and really planted some really good seeds for me in my heart. And so I was prepared whenever the DE intensive came there for, Drew and Austin Davis and there's just so many people that came. Um, I even talked to Mike Koster this past DE, and he said he was there. He spoke. Jay Corson was there, and after that event, I actually went ahead and purchased, the cash only practice book of J's and read through that, and man, it just started, revealing some stuff to me that I needed to change. And so I started getting rid of my, my therapy stuff. So I got rid of my muscle stem, I got rid of my roller tables, I got rid of my ultrasound, my cold laser, all the stuff that I had, and took down the walls, started kind of, you know, um, opening things up a little bit, having more of an open adjusting style, and really broadening my vision. Um, got out of network with all the insurance companies. So that was a huge thing. So when I started out in practice, I was part of a group practice of 10 chiropractors in Olathe, a suburb here in Kansas City. And they just put me into those networks. And so I thought that was the way to go. You get on the list and you start getting referrals from insurance companies. And what I realized down the road was, a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of, that game had to play, and there was a lot of fear that just was built up around that, and the fear of maybe not documenting things correctly, and knowing that it was just there was a contradiction. The more I learned, really at DE, the more I realized I was contradicting um, what chiropractic was, because I was having to fulfill um, this the Medicare guidelines and play that game of insurance. And so it was very freeing when I finally um, got out of network with all the insurance companies. I thought I'd turn off my notifications, but I don't know. It's the weather app just showed up on there, so hopefully you guys aren't going to see all my notifications. The But yeah, so that was just very freeing, getting out of that trap of the insurance plans. And so then I just, broad each time I've, been to DE, it's like my vision has just broadened more and more. And that was my intention going down there this past time, a couple weeks ago, was to have my intention was to have my vision refined even more. I want my vision for chiropractic and my vision for my practice to be refined. And that was my only expectation. I think going down there, I didn't really, it's weird. For you guys that have been there a few times or been there a lot, it's like in my mind, I'm kind of skeptical, maybe critical by nature. And so sometimes I'm thinking, well, do I really need to go? Like, I've heard everybody speak already, they're going to say the same things. And that's just my critical heart that is always humbled whenever I get there and I hear, where people are at and just new people's stories and different parts of other people's stories. And so, yeah, I went down there with really the expectation that I wanted to broaden and refine my vision. And I really wanted to be able to get quiet, I guess, refine that ability to get quiet and listen to innate. And so really both those things happened, which was amazing. And um, another cool thing was I immediately started kind of connecting with a different group. It was like I started meeting students and some young doctors and some guys that had been in practice for a while, but were kind of where I was at, just really struggling and hurting. I mean, I was hurting. Justin Quayle, like that first, um, not the intensive, but the first DE event down in Sarasota I went to, like Justin was up till, really late listening to me just vent and talk about how bad I was hurting. I think at that point I was 5 months behind on my rent of my office. I think I was about 3 months behind on my mortgage, and I had to borrow money from my mom to be able to go to that event. But I knew I just needed to get there, and that's really, Andy urged that, and I'm glad he did. And I saw that same thing. There was a young guy that was there this time that had gone to Andy, and Andy said, you have to get to DE." And he told me that his mom had paid for him to get there, and he had just dropped out of school and was really struggling, to be able to persist and just be able to connect with him, because it took me back. I remembered I dropped out of chiropractic college and listened to Dean Satilli, tell his story. It was very much I was in the same boat. I'd gotten and wrapped up in drugs while I was in chiropractic college, and I was selling weed to a lot of the students, like people from out of town. Since I was local, I was from Kansas City. I knew had some connections, and so I did that. And then I had a connection that I got into with even more, yeah, more addictive type of drugs that it was a slippery slope. And so it kind of took me all back and made me really grateful hearing Dean share and hearing my friend Luke, who been praying for. I know he's going to persist and he's going to get back into the program to be able to get his practice going. So yeah, just it's amazing just the camaraderie that's there. And that's one thing I wanted to read from the Meadowlands experience, is what Sid was talking about. And I was reading, the beginning of what Meadowlands on the way down on the plane. And I shared this with uh, Tony Ann because she was talking a lot about this, and a few other people I shared this with. But this is a couple paragraphs out of the Meadowlands. And Sid, is pre-framing this whole thing. He's setting the tone for this DE intensive in New York, and he's just wants to tell people what he's going to tell them. He wants them to know what he wants them to go away with at the end of this weekend, this intensive. And so he says, now what we have here at DE is a camaraderie has held up for 20 plus years, and with some of us even 30 years. And it hit me like now it's been 60 years. We have a dedication and a commonness of purpose to an inner wisdom. And this inner wisdom we're speaking of, this inner unity, is a friend within. Every one of us has a very loving, warm, friendly, innate consciousness within us that's always open. And that word open really jumped out at me because he says it a few times in this paragraph. It's always open and susceptible to our suggestions and our mandates and our desires and our ambitions, but most people don't recognize it. They don't have any idea about this friend within. They don't have any idea how to overcome negative emotional momentum. And I think that's really where I was stuck in the beginning, and it's still a struggle. But I'm sure a lot of people can relate. There's a negative emotional momentum that happens. That stinking thinking that happens. And so Sid was addressing that from the beginning of this talk. So they spend their lives in frustration, reading about spiritual awareness, about spiritual development, about innate development, about business development. While we recognize that here have always been a few people, while we recognize that there have always been a few people who are able to touch something different. These people may be insignificant looking. They may even look like Southern rednecks, but they have something magical about them. There's a certain attractiveness, a certain authority, a certain being, a certain presence, a certain enthusiasm, a masculinity or a femininity about them, or a mixture of all these qualities, so that their presence engenders a warm, friendly, loving state. And I mean, that's deep as far as my memory of going to DE in the beginning was just I was just drawn to that. I was really attracted to that authenticity that people had. The best thing we can accomplish in this intensive, he says, is to give you something that you'll leave with the feeling of openness. So there's that openness again, the kind of openness that comes after long walks by the ocean. Some of us go to Atlantic City. We spend time in the gambling casinos and on the boardwalks, which was kind of fun because we had at the DE the 60th anniversary. They had the casino night, so that was a fun little um, thing to have too. And I got a picture that I want to share in a minute. But we chit chat, we read this, we read that, we look at the television, we get frustrated, we wish we could go back home. And what we want to leave you with is the feeling you get when you walk on the beach alone, or maybe with a lover or a close friend, a friend you don't have to sell or influence or solve the major mysteries of life with, where you just walk and walk, listen to the waves, and let the sound of the ocean soothe you. Now, if you can get this feeling, completely relaxed and free and open, and you can walk into your office and see all the things that are wrong, and not only that, but have an inner direction and inner guidance produced by the wisdom that comes purely from within, then you'll have a new kind of knowledge to build your practice. And so, he mentions this word open quite a few times. And so when Tony Ann was speaking on Friday night, she shared a scripture in Mark, I believe it was Mark chapter 7, where Jesus actually he heals a deaf mute man. And it says in verse 33, after he took this man aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers in the man's ears, and then he spit and touched the man's tongue. he looked up to heaven with a deep sigh and said to him, Ephatha, which means be opened. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. It kind of resembles, the first chiropractic adjustment, with the deaf man, Didi adjusted, Harvey Lillard getting his hearing back. But just that, that common thread of that message of be open, and that means a lot to me. There's a lot of different ways you can take that, it's like he opened up the mouth of God, be open to the possibility, be open to the wee small voice speaking to us, that's when we have that new spirit born into the consciousness of man, is when we become aware, humble, open to, obedient to this wee small voice. And that's what allows us to become dynamic, which is essential in order to live an abundant life. And it's essential to be able to help people to have this abundance. So I want to share a photo. This is the photo from that DE intensive. If I can switch this around, hopefully it'll let me do that. Yeah. So that's Jay Corson, and he's saying the chiropractic mindset. And what it says on his slide there, again, this is back in 2017, a made-up mind that chiropractic works every time, and you are as sure of it as you are that gravity works every time you drop your keys. The willingness to accept every patient, regardless of condition or ability to pay. Giving for the sake of giving, loving for the sake of loving, serving for the sake of serving out of your own abundance, so that you may show others how to live more abundantly. And so, yeah, it's kind of cool how that message has just continued to come back around, and even the tick, when I was down there, um, make sure I have this right. The one of the things I was going down was to ask. I want to ask, some of the people who've been around a while, like, what does that mean? Tick, chiropractic. What does that mean to you? And so I guess what brought that on is I was putting together my core values for my office, and I had about 7 of them, and it's hard for me to remember all of them because there's so many. I want to come up with like a little um, acronym or some kind of way to remember it. And so what I boiled it down to in our office, our values are truth, integrity, and compassion. And our mission is to help educate people or draw out of people where true health comes from, above, down, inside out. And so the one thing that really, I feel like this was a thought flash I had with this whole truth, integrity, and compassion, because I realized that truth does not come from us, from people. Truth is something that is from our creator. Truth is a universal truth. It comes to us from above down. Integrity is how we integrate that truth. We process it, and the truth of health through chiropractic, we are able to, you know, express that to our patients, to the people around us, and with compassion. So compassion is how we live out that truth and how we share it. And so that acronym TICK was what I stuck with, and so that was why I was asking those questions to people while I was down there. And but it's neat looking back and just seeing that that's what they were talking about at the first DE intensive that I went to. So flash forward here, I'll show you this one. This is fun, be able to have uh, time there with Dee Dee, and that's just such a special memory to be able to have there. I just felt so honored to be at this event, and Dean and his son, and then there's Ryan and Dan, Nick Schuster, and I mean, just some fun memories just to be able to be a part of that, and just be just honored to be able to you know e- experience that together. So anyway, I appreciate you guys. I think the other thing I will share is that what I took away from it is like my identity is changing. Each time I go to DE, my identity shifts a little bit. And I know that first time I was like a very insecure person who was just looking for answers. I was looking for some kind of help. And over the last 7 years, things have just shifted more and more. I have a small group practice now, and I'm next to the school, so I have this vision of being able to help students. And so actually, Casey Berry, called me today and was like, "Hey, let's start getting together. Maybe help start a DE club on campus. We can do some things to host the students and start having a band of brothers meet again." And so that was a huge, um, just dream come true to have that call happen. And then also, I think my role or my identity that shifted even more is to get, and this is what I burned, the husk that I had to shed, and what I burned for Chris Walker. He thanks to him, he shed, or he burned all those husks that we wanted to shed. But one of them was to really just get out of my own way as far as leadership and get rid of that insecurity I have around my leadership and grow in my leadership skills. And so my decision is to just step into the leadership role that I've been called to. And so I don't know totally what that looks like right now, but I know that there's a lot of students around my office. We're actually having an intern, a preceptor start on Thursday. And so excited to be able to share principled chiropractic with him. And yeah, just grateful for all the friendships I've developed over the last few years. Chase Dice has been just a godsend for me. He actually bought me this shirt. Grateful for that. And he's just always in there with me, just giving, just for the sake of it. And I think that's probably what I'll leave with is we talk about giving for the sake of giving, loving for the sake of loving, serving for the sake of serving, doing for the sake of doing without it expecting any return. And there is a little bit extra on that for me that I think I've read this. Maybe it was in Sid's book, The Road to Success Starts in the Heart. I know I've read him talk about this, but there's a faith part of that. You don't just do it and expect nothing. Obviously, we have to survive. We have to live. We want to thrive even. And so we give, love, serve out of our own abundance without expecting any return, but knowing just like, we drop the keys, knowing that all of our needs will be taken care of. And all of our desires, our heart's desire will be fulfilled. So that there's a trust factor there when we do that, when we give and love and serve and do out of our own abundance, we're still, we're not expecting anything immediate return, but we are trusting that God's going to provide. We're trusting that He is going to give us not only our heart's desire, but just even more than we can imagine, ask or imagine. So that's what I want to kind of leave you with is just that's the hope, that we're just going to keep giving, loving, serving, and having that lasting purpose philosophy, that mindset, and live principled, and good things are going to happen. Good things will come out of it. So I think what I'll close with is I'll go ahead and just say a prayer. If that's okay. I'll pray. I know Andy mentioned praying for the country and praying for Kat, and so I'll just close with that and then shift back over to you guys. So let's pray together. God, we are grateful for this time. We're so thankful for the men you've put in our lives, the women you've put in our lives through Dynamic Essentials for 60 years, and just seeing that torch passed, being there at the event, the dinner was so special and such an honor. God, I pray you help our country to be unified in the same way that small group of men and women are unified, that we can know that we all are different. That's what we celebrate is our differences, and that we can just move forward knowing and trusting, having that faith and trust that everything is going to work out for good if we just continue to serve each other, serve our neighbors, and be with Kat. Help her to heal. Thank you for all that she does to serve us and all the work she puts in that goes unseen. So we're just grateful for her, God. Give her rest, give her peace, help our country to be at peace as well. Amen.
That was awesome, my man. Last week's speaker kind of talked about his trials and tribulations, and you open up your heart. I didn't know about you dealing weed at school and all that stuff. And I see you as a very, very faithful man now. I had no idea what your past was that far, and I've known you for 7-10 years right now. So that was awesome, and I'm sure there's somebody in their basement or on their phone watching this thinking, okay, if that can happen for him, maybe it can happen for me. And thanks for sharing the pictures too, because brought good memories. That was a hard intensive to put together, and I'm glad it made impact. There's a lot of people impacted by that. So I'm honored that you stayed the course and done so well. I'm sure there's somebody that's listening tonight or going to hear it again, and maybe calling you up and say, hey, dude, I need some help. And I really, really appreciate you. And those of you who weren't at DE, you saw some pictures. It was a great time. We always talk about, come. It's not come because DE needs you. It's come because maybe you need what DE has, and that camaraderie he was talking about for 60 years, and brotherhood and sisterhood. And we got this new thing called teams, to where if people have questions, just gonna feel free to reach out, and that's gonna be awesome. So great job, JJ. I really appreciate you. Love you, man. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you too.
All right, everybody, have a great night. And again, let's hope in the next 2 or 3 days our country is united again, and Kat's getting all her energy back. Love you, JJ. Have a great night.
Love you too. All right.
Love y'all.